Okay, so what do we mean by space? It's three-dimensional organisation over topography. It's actually contiguous fabric. You could draw it. In fact, we're trying to work out ways how we can actually show it. It's created by the landform, incredibly important. So it's what is the space doing in plan? What is the space doing in section? Is it wide? Is it narrow? Is it going up over a hill? How it connects to other spaces. And scale is a major issue in this and quite often forgotten. So of the spatial system of a city, 80% of it is in the street pattern. So if you do not get your street pattern right, if you do not get your spatial structure right, no matter how good the architecture is, no matter how good the paving, lighting, anything else, you will not get the city to work. The spatial structure is why open spaces work, why plazas work. It is not about, I mean, how many plazas have had the lighting ripped out, the paving changed, da-da-da-da-da. Will it actually work? It will only work if it's an integral part of the spatial system. Like the Campo in Siena, because the Campo in Siena is a wonderful space, working incredibly well since 1346, so that's a pretty good, pedigree. But it has 13 connections back to the city, and they are all strategic connections. Space is not about a destination, it is about a contiguous tissue throughout the city. Open space is the other component, as in parks, walkways, edge waterways, etc. And it's also determined, obviously, by the building envelopes. So that's where the architecture is important. What is the shape of the building doing to create the space? So, why is it important? It has the power to embrace or exclude, to intimidate or empower, to enhance the smallest point of difference or dull a unique landmark. That is just the range of things you can actually do with space. The other thing about space is it's free. For heaven's sake, it is actually free. So if we want our cities to work well, we can manipulate them to make it work well. Now I'd have to say, to some degree, about Auckland CBD, in terms of understanding the space. There's a wonderful street system within the CBD, Merrill Drive excluded, but the rest of it's an incredible street system. Sitting up on a hill, it is a walled city. Spatially, Auckland is a walled city. And apart from the Grafton Bridge, every other access into the city is saying, oh, don't come in here, don't come in here. But if we understand Auckland City as a spatial system, and then we can say, it's a walled city. How many fantastic walled cities are there in the world? Millions of them. Siena is one. So we just have to change the way, understand what are the unique, and it's so unique, the features in Auckland, so incredibly unique. So we need to actually build on that, to use that space to understand the city and reinforce the nature of it. So it's a connector. It provides it's the thing that most provides an understanding of topography. And if ever there's a country in the world that has the most extraordinary topography, it has to be New Zealand. But if you don't put the right street pattern over it, you won't understand it, you won't see it. Human beings are yay high, 70-degree view cone, and only this far from the land. So they can only see so far to tops of hills. They can only understand at different levels, or they can see long ways, a long area on flats or from up high. So there's a whole range of ways that you use that. If you lay the streets out to reveal the topography, that is the key to actually understanding the identity of a city, because your identity comes from your topography. It gives you a variety of experiences. Vulcan Lane versus Queen Street, narrow spaces, wide spaces, paved spaces, etc. It gives you a framework for your architecture and vegetation, city for the public life, a setting for your public life. One of the reasons traditionally cities were always about space was because it started out that all public life was in the space. All public life in Roman cities, Greek cities, was out in the open, and you only lived in the buildings. So there was that whole intrinsic understanding of what space meant to a city. So space is fun, it's also about economics. If we have those bridges into Auckland CBD saying, don't come here, what's that doing for the purse? So it's about economics as well. And it's also very, very subtle. You can turn people off space. How many times have you've seen things and you've thought, oh, is it private, is it public, can I go there? Very, very subtle. Things as subtle as curb lines can change the whole nature of how space operates. And it's a thing that actually enhances your heritage. Forget copying the architecture. Don't go beside some grey church and put up a grey building. Understand what the spatial relationship is between the building and the heritage building. Now I've put on here the 2 finest harbours in the world. So, just as a comparison, that when I've said space is the revealer or space is the obliterator, I'm sure I've made up 2 new words there. But the fact is, if you organise your street system over your land in the right way, you will reveal your topography. If you don't, you won't reveal your topography. And you can see that out to some degrees, the 70s planning out in Manukau, where you get all those really short streets, cul-de-sacs and whatever, because you can't read the land. Everybody says it's flat. It's not flat out there, it just appears flat. Might be a bit flatter than it is in Auckland CBD. But the landform is the key to the identity, so the street system needs to actually reveal that. Now here we have 2 wonderful harbours side by side. You could put exactly the same principal street pattern over both of those harbours, and yet every single street will be different. Every perception will be different, and it will be different because every intrinsic little part about this harbour is entirely different to this harbour. The shape of the land, the steepness, the way it goes under the water and above, the distance between the land masses. Sydney Harbour, very deep, on sandstone. Auckland Harbour, very wide, very expansive. As somebody said, it's a much better harbour to sail on, but Sydney Harbour's better for fireworks. So they've all got their certain... You're into New Year's Eve. So understanding the quality of the ground. Sydney Harbour is sandstone. I was amazed here when we were putting in the train out at Manukau, and I said, well, you have to line the trench. What do you mean? If you don't line the trench, it'll be a soggy mass in the morning. But I'm used to sandstone, where you just put a line through it and leave it. So the other thing that I think I mentioned here, and because while the street pattern reveals the topography and understanding of the land, and hence the identity, the quality of light. Now, New Zealand must have the best quality of light, I think, in the world. I thought that when I first came here as a backpacker when I was about 15, this is pre-attempting to be a bunny in London. And when I came back now, in the last couple of years, the light here is absolutely extraordinary. So, but by getting your street pattern right over your landform, you can also utilise, make the benefits of the light enhance your city as well. And light is very different, obviously, if you're in a tropical climate and that hard light like Perth, but that's something that often we don't even take account of.